on television, online, in print, on radio.
EWTN News continues, finding the Catholic vote.
And on the go. No other news service brings together more news from a Catholic perspective than we do. EWTN News. Visit EWTNnews.com.
Guardini is one of the handful of people who took the modern world and its technological origins seriously enough that it had to be incorporated in Catholic theology.
Unlimited production means that every art of force and cunning must be used to produce unlimited consumption. We build theaters in the form of temples, banks in the form of cathedrals. Working days and Sundays merge into one another.
We're facing the dawn of a different sort of culture, not mass industrial technology, but technology you can hold in your hand.
You have to ask yourself, does this bring us together or does it tear us apart?
To grapple with these issues is to grapple with Guardini. Truly a prophet in his own times and a remarkably important touchstone for the digital world in which we're now living.
EWTN. Live true. Live Catholic.
It is 9 o'clock Eastern, and more states have closed their polls in this race for the White House. Here is a look right now at the current electoral map. President Donald Trump has been projected to win 9 states, including Alabama, Arkansas, Indiana, Kentucky, Mississippi, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, and West Virginia, while Joe Biden is projected to claim 7 states, including Connecticut, Illinois, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Vermont, and Virginia. Good evening, and thanks for joining us again tonight on this special live edition of EWTN News Nightly. I'm Tracy Sable. And we have our team election coverage tonight, including reporting and analysis. Owen Jensen is at the White House, where President Trump is watching the results. Mark Iron is in Delaware with the Joe Biden campaign. And Eric Rosales is watching key Senate races from Capitol Hill, where the balance of power could swing. But we start now with White House correspondent Owen Jensen, who is live tonight from the North Lawn of the White House. Owen.
Yeah, Tracy, good evening to you on a very exciting Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020. Unbelievable, right? Well, let's get right to it. As you mentioned, President Donald Trump in the White House right now tonight, monitoring the results as they come in. There was some talk that he might go to the Trump Hotel down the street, but so far that hasn't happened tonight. As for those rallies, those signature rallies he had in the days leading up to the election today, they were nonstop, multiple states. Well, today, no rallies, but he did make some phone calls to radio stations in battleground Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. Should also add the president did make a road trip, a small, short road trip to Virginia today, to the campaign headquarters there. He spoke to staffers there, thanked them. And I want you to take a listen to what he said about what it means, how people get united, how success brings people together. Take a listen.
When you see rallies, the likes of which in the history of this country, probably in the history of the world, nobody's ever seen before, there's a tremendous love going on in this country. And there's really a tremendous unity. There's a tremendous unity. Nobody's ever seen that, where you take an airport and the airport's not big enough to hold the crowds. Nobody's ever seen a thing like that.
Now, just down the street from the White House in Black Lives Matter Plaza, there's been a crowd of demonstrators as expected and no problems reported. And so, Tracy, tonight, the battle for the magic number 270 continues. Not there yet, but we'll be monitoring it all night long. Tracy. All right, and we know you will. Also, you know, a big question really tonight on everyone's mind is, will this actually end tonight? That is the million-dollar question, right, Tracy? You know, I talked to the Deputy Press Secretary earlier today, the White House Deputy Press Secretary. He said what people want, they want what everyone wants, right? Certainty. They want a result by the end of tonight. Will we get it? You know, that's up in the air, of course, but he also did say if the fight goes to the courts, they are prepared to do battle. Tracy?
All right, Owen, we will see what happens. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reporting for us tonight. Thanks so much, Owen. All right, we continue our team coverage with the Biden campaign. Correspondent Mark Irons joins us now from Wilmington, Delaware. Mark.
Tracy, not far behind me here is where Joe Biden is expected to address the nation at some point this evening or perhaps into the early morning hours. But he is here in Wilmington at his home watching the election returns. And not long ago, he encouraged voters to stay in line, to stay in the polling lines, even if the stations have closed. They still have a right to cast their vote. And he said simply, folks, stay in line on Twitter. Here's what he said earlier today when he returned here to Delaware.
I believe very, very strongly, I really mean it, that we have to restore decency and honor in our system, or it's going to fall apart. Secondly, I believe extremely strongly, and I know you've all watched it from the very beginning, that we have to rebuild the middle class. We have to give ordinary people a fighting chance.
The former vice president made these remarks to reporters late this afternoon in Wilmington. He began his day here by visiting a Catholic church and followed that up with a visit to the graves of his son, first wife, and baby daughter. Mr. Biden then made one last dash to Pennsylvania, visiting his childhood home in Scranton, and then ending in Philadelphia, where he was met by an enthusiastic crowd. And so right now, again, the message from Team Biden is simply votes are still coming in. They're still being counted. And even if polling stations have closed, you can still stay in line. You still have a right to cast your vote. We heard from Senator Kamala Harris, who tweeted just about the same thing as Joe Biden, saying, stay in line. Tracy?
Okay, thank you so much, Mark. Correspondent Mark Irons reporting for us tonight. Both President Donald Trump and Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden are hoping for a big win in Pennsylvania tonight. The Keystone State's 20 electoral votes will be important in determining this race for the White House. Joining us now on Skype is Dr. Paul Kengor, author and professor of political science at Grove City College in Grove City, Pennsylvania. Dr. Kengor, great to see you. Welcome back. Before we get to Pennsylvania, I know that you're an expert in political science. What's your assessment for this race so far?
Well, I think that if Trump can win the battleground states of Arizona, Florida, Ohio, and North Carolina, which I think he will, Tracy, then it's a matter of winning Pennsylvania. And I got to tell you, as somebody who lives in Western Pennsylvania, and Donald Trump pointed out these crowd sizes that no one has ever seen before. Well, one of them over the weekend on Saturday was in my hometown of Butler, Pennsylvania. I wasn't there. I knew people who were, and there were supposedly 57,000 people there. That's really amazing. And that, I think that's an indicator of the kind of enthusiasm that we're seeing in Pennsylvania. And the data that I'm looking at in Pennsylvania right now, I mean, I wrote a piece this morning for the American Spectator titled "Why Trump Will Win Pennsylvania." I think he will. I think the data is pointing to that.
You know, that was going to be my next question to you, Paul. Why exactly do you think that? I know you mentioned the rallies. What about Joe Biden? How does he figure into that? Because, you know, he is a Pennsylvania guy, right, living there up until he was 10 years old. What do you think about that? Do you think that him being from Pennsylvania pulls any weight at all?
Yeah, he's from the eastern part of the state. So Scranton is way out northeast, you know, Western Pennsylvania. That's really fracking area, Western Pennsylvania. And that answered by Joe Biden at the end of the second debate really hurt him in Western PA. And as of this morning, Tracy, so the Real Clear Politics average had Biden up by 1.2 points. That's down from 3.8 last week. And for people to truly put this in perspective, the Real Clear Politics average had Hillary Clinton up by 1.9. So 1.2 for Biden is actually less than where Hillary was. And Donald Trump outperformed the polls by about 3 percentage points in Pennsylvania. He ended up winning Pennsylvania by 44,000 votes in 2016. Since that time, Democrats have lost about 200,000 registered voters that have become Republican. So I really do find it hard to imagine Donald Trump losing Pennsylvania. I think he has Pennsylvania in the bag. And if Donald Trump wins Pennsylvania, I think he'll win the Electoral College, and I think he'll win the election. He might not, probably won't win the popular vote. But if he wins Pennsylvania, he's got the Electoral College.
Paul, I want to talk about fracking. You mentioned that. That is one of the key issues there in Pennsylvania. What are some of the issues for besides fracking, on the ballot right now that Pennsylvanians are concerned about?
Well, I'd say from a Catholic perspective, court packing. And I've run into so many Catholics in Pennsylvania who said, look, I still don't really like Donald Trump that much, and I might have considered a vote for Joe Biden. Really, Tracy, what changed that, I think, was Biden reversing himself on the Hyde Amendment in the summer of 2019. But for a lot of these people, when they found out that Biden didn't rule out court packing after Donald Trump picks like Amy Coney Barrett and Neil Gorsuch and other pro-life picks, for them, the idea that Biden could suddenly change the entire balance of the court by adding, say, 4 new seats in a Biden administration. I've met a lot of Catholics, a lot of pro-lifers, a lot of pro-life evangelicals who said, I have to vote to stop that. And they might not have been willing to vote for Biden. They were on the fence about Donald Trump. But when they heard that as pro-lifers, they said, well, I'm kind of left with no option now but to vote for Trump in order to vote against Biden.
Well, Paul, we have to leave it right there. We're running out of time, but I thank you so much for coming on. We always appreciate your analysis, and we will see what happens in Pennsylvania. Thanks again, Paul.
You got it. Thank you.
Well, there is more than the presidential election tonight. Of course, there are also several crucial races in the U.S. Senate. Democrats currently are projected to win 42 seats in the Senate, with Republicans expected to claim 38. 51 spots are needed for a majority. So far, 7 more senators are winning re-election. The Democratic incumbents who will keep their jobs are Senators Chris Coons of Delaware, Dick Durbin of Illinois, Ed Markey of Massachusetts, Jeanne Shaheen of New Hampshire, Cory Booker of New Jersey, and Jack Reed of Rhode Island. Now, on the GOP side, that is, James Inhofe of Oklahoma is also projected to win re-election. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales is keeping an eye on all the developments for us. Eric?
I tell you, it's a very busy night, Tracy. Yeah, it is a battle for who's going to control the Senate. As we know, 35 seats right now are up for election, 23 from Republicans and 12 from Democrats. And Republicans have been able to hold the majority since 2014, but whether or not they can continue to do that is yet to be seen. One of the races that we've been following very closely is in the state of Kentucky, where we take a look at Majority Leader Mitch McConnell was seeking for his 7th term in office. And he was over the Democratic candidate, Amy McGrath, and it appears that he is the declared winner with more than 56%. Now, whether or not that he'll be able to keep his majority seat is yet to be seen. That will actually be decided on later on. If Democrats actually gain control, then it will likely be Chuck Schumer. Now, moving on to one of the other races is South Carolina, where Republican Senator Lindsey Graham is taking on Democratic candidate Jamie Harrison, and Senator Graham is in the fight for his life. An interesting fact is that in the third quarter, about $50 million was raised by the Democratic fundraising strong arm known as Act Blue. Now, with the state of 3 million people and with voters about 2.5 million, when you're talking about $50 million in the third quarter, that is a definite battle to try and come up against. And right now, it's just too close to call, as you saw, at around both 49%. Another race that we're following very closely is in Alabama. As we take a look, Republican Tommy Tuberville is coming up a lot short against his Democratic contender, Doug Jones. Doug Jones is in a major lead right now by almost 30%. Tuberville, as we know, is the former Auburn football coach who actually tried to run on his name recognition, and he did beat Attorney General Jeff Sessions in a previous election. Moving on, also Alabama's neighbor is known as Georgia. And in the state of Georgia, we're looking at 2 Senate races currently up. Republican David Perdue is off to a major big lead, and it's looking like that the state may actually stay red. But there is an interesting fact. There's a special election that's taking place in there, and that special election will actually decide on whether or not they have to be able to have more than 50% of the vote. If not, there's going to be a runoff election in January. So it's still early to be seen on whether or not that race is going to be decided. Tracy?
Okay, Eric, a very busy night indeed. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. All right, well, joining us now on Skype to talk more about the Senate race in Alabama is Greg Garrison, reporter for the Birmingham News. Greg, welcome to the show. Great to have you on. As we know, Thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate it. As we know, Alabama typically does trend red, but in 2017, Doug Jones, a Democrat, won in a 2017 special election. Jones is now facing Tommy Tuberville, a Republican, a former Auburn football coach. What are you seeing there on the ground right now in Alabama?
Well, we expect Trump to win easily here, and everybody thought that he was going to pull Coach Tuberville along with him. Trump endorsed Tuberville, and he campaigned for him. It really looked like Tuberville would be pulled along, but we're watching that race closely. There's a chance Doug Jones could pull that out, which would bode well for the Democrats in the Senate, because they basically took for granted that they were going to lose Doug Jones in Alabama as a rare Democrat in the Deep South. So we're still watching that race very closely. Trump looks like he's going to win Alabama, but maybe not by as much as he did in 2016 when he won over 62% of the vote here. So Tommy Tuberville, the football coach, hurt himself, I think, by not debating Doug Jones. He kind of tried to coast into the finish line on Trump's coattails, and it may not have worked for him. We'll see.
Indeed. Greg, let's talk about some of the key issues in your state. What are voters most concerned about there in Alabama?
Here in Alabama, the Southern Baptists are the largest denomination. There are over 1 million people in a 5 million population state, and they're very concerned about abortion and Supreme Court nominees. So they were big supporters of President Trump's nominees for the Supreme Court. Doug Jones voted against those nominees, and that was a point that a lot of Tuberville supporters dwelled on. So abortion was a big issue. Tuberville and Jones went back and forth over the abortion issue, and I think that the nominees to the Supreme Court were very popular here in Alabama.
Greg, we have a little less than a minute left, but can you quickly talk about what's at stake in this race?
Yeah, for Alabama, it's very crucial, this Senate seat. Doug Jones, if he is in the Senate with a Democratic majority, he would have a lot of power to bring things home for Alabama. So that may be one reason some people might have leaned a little bit towards the Democrat in this race if they expect Joe Biden to pull it out. Tommy Tuberville, as a rookie senator who had no political experience, would only be valuable if Trump wins re-election. So we're waiting to see, if Tuberville is going to go along with Trump. If Biden wins and Doug Jones somehow pulls out a miracle win here again in Alabama, and we have a Democratic senator from Alabama, which would be unexpected.
Well, I guess time will tell,
possibly,
Greg. Yeah, for sure. Sorry to cut you off. We're running out of time, but we appreciate you coming on, Greg. Greg Garrison, reporter for the Birmingham News. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. And coming up, Catherine Hadro tells us about the pro-life issues being considered today. We'll be right back.
Hello, family. Ever since Mother Angelica founded EWTN almost 40 years ago, our network has been funded by faithful Catholics from all walks of life. Young families, single people, grandmothers in nursing homes, parish priests, and the list goes on. To everyone who's donated to our mission, I want to take the opportunity today to say thank you. It's because of your prayers and donations that we can share the daily Mass with those who are homebound. It is through your support that we can proclaim the truth and beauty of the Church and her teachings. And most importantly, we can share the love of God with a world in need. Whether you've recently joined us or have supported the network from the beginning, we simply could not do what we do without your ongoing generosity. We're so appreciative of the testimonials and stories that many of our EWTN family have shared with us throughout the years. But we want to hear your story of how EWTN has had an impact on your life. Please know that we're always grateful to God for you, our EWTN family. May God bless you.
To share your story or to make a donation, please visit EWTN.com/mystory. You can also make a donation by calling us at 1-800-447-EWTN Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern, or send your donation to EWTN 5817 Old Leeds Road, Irondale, Alabama 35210.
Behold, the Lamb of God, who takes away the sins of the world. For the sake of his sorrowful passion, join us in daily prayer and thanksgiving for Christ's most merciful heart. The Chaplet of the Divine Mercy, here on the Global Catholic Network, EWTN.
Welcome back to our live election night coverage. Both President Donald Trump and Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden have actively sought the support the election of the Catholic voters seen as critical in winning the White House. Joining me now on Skype is Representative Dan Lipinski, pro-life Democrat from Illinois. Congressman, welcome back. Good to see you. Thanks so much for coming on. As we wait for the results in the race for president, can you talk a little bit more about your thoughts on what this election means for the pro-life movement and also what's at stake?
Well, thank you for having me on tonight. As many people know, I lost my primary, Democratic primary earlier this year on account of the abortion issue. The Democratic Party, unfortunately, has become very radical on the abortion issue, and this is a great concern to me. And in moving forward, should Joe Biden win, it's going to be critical that we fight very hard right from the beginning to at least protect the Hyde Amendment and prevent taxpayer funding for abortion. But we'll see what happens tonight. We need to have the pro-life movement needs to be in both parties, and that's why I've stuck in the Democratic Party and still am working to try to change the party and open it up to pro-life voters more.
Congressman, what will be your message to party leaders about the need to include the voices of pro-life Democrats like yourself in the party?
Well, I think if they simply look at the numbers, we don't know what's going to happen tonight, but so far it looks like a pretty tight race, and Democrats are losing in heavily in rural areas, but also amongst President Trump surprisingly has done better with Hispanics. And I think some of that is because of the abortion issue. I think the Democratic Party needs to wake up and understand that they have to, in the very least, have a big tent that accepts the 30% of Democratic voters in the country who say that they are pro-life. They cannot keep pushing pro-life Democrats out of the party.
You know, and as we know, you've been a pro-life voice for so long on Capitol Hill, often going up against your own party who has pro-abortion views. Can you talk a little bit about that and what the experience has been like for you?
Well, it's gotten especially bad in the last 3-4 years. In 2018, I had $3 million spent against me by the pro-abortion forces. I narrowly won that race. 2020, they spent at least that much again, and I narrowly lost. These groups have a lot of money. They're willing to spend it. They want to make sure that they want to push all elected pro-life Democrats out. They saw it was in their interest. They understand that it's very important to them to have no pro-life voices in the Democratic Party. I think that should show us in the pro-life movement that we need to have those Democratic voices, and we're going to have to keep battling for that.
In 2016, we know abortion was really an important issue, especially for Catholic voters. How much of a factor do you think it's been in 2020, and what's the way forward in keeping it top of mind for future elections?
Well, I think it has been a very big issue. Look, this is an issue that on both sides, people are very passionate about it. I'm optimistic, but because we see younger voters, we see a new pro-life generation. I think that's a very good sign. But we're going to have to keep battling on this issue. We'll see what the Supreme Court does now. I'm very happy to see Amy Coney Barrett be confirmed for the court. But even if Roe v. Wade were overturned, it's going to make this battle tougher because we're going to have to go state by state. And, I keep warning people that some people who are friends, it's been easy to be pro-life in the Republican Party up until now. But if we're actually voting on making real pro-life laws, that may change. I've been willing to stand up in the Democratic Party no matter what. It cost me my seat, but it was worth it. And I think it's important for all of us to put ourselves out there and stand up for life, even when it's uncomfortable. But we know how important this issue is.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much, Representative. And for the pro-life movement, much is at stake in this election at both the national and the state level. And for more on that, Catherine Hadro, host of EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, joins me now. Catherine, welcome back. Always so good to see you. First off, we just heard from Congressman Lipinski offering his perspective as a pro-life Democrat. What do you think about what he had to say?
Really important conversation you just had there, Tracy, because when Dan Lipinski lost his primary earlier this year, it wasn't just a loss for him. It was a big loss for the pro-life movement. I mean, for 8 terms, we could count on Dan Lipinski to be that reliable pro-life Democrat voice on Capitol Hill, which is unfortunately an increasingly rare voice that we hear today, because over the years, the Democratic Party has gotten more and more extreme on the abortion issue. And we saw the abortion lobby pour a ton of money into his opponent's race so that he was primaried and he lost. And, in speaking with Dan Lipinski a number of times over the year, he continues to reiterate that being a Catholic congressman means not fitting neatly into one political party. And I think we saw that reflected when he lost his primary. He stood up for the church's teachings on life in the Democratic Party, and he lost.
Yeah, we saw what happened there. Very disappointing. I want to get your perspective on the presidential election from a pro-life perspective. Let's talk about that.
Yes, absolutely. Well, from a broad pro-life perspective, Biden and Trump could not be more opposite on the abortion issue. And Tracy, this race is really the story of 2 nominees who have both flipped on the abortion issue. Let's take Joe Biden. So he is on the record in the past has said that abortion is always a tragedy. When he was in the Senate, he long supported the Hyde Amendment, which blocks taxpayer dollars from funding abortion. But now, as the Democratic presidential nominee, who may very well win tonight, we'll see as the polls continue to come in, he has said he would repeal the Hyde Amendment. He has said he would codify Roe v. Wade, and he said he would re-implement the Affordable Care Act's contraceptive mandate. So he has totally flipped on this issue. And then you have Donald Trump, who in the past has publicly supported abortion, but since becoming president, he has openly said, listen, I'm a pro-life convert now. He has absolutely advanced pro-life measures, and he said if reelected tonight, he would continue to follow through on pro-life promises, fully defund Planned Parenthood, appoint justices who uphold the constitutional right to life, and implement pro-life laws. So again, they could not be more opposite on the abortion issue.
Okay, we have about a minute left. And I know you're looking at some very important pro-life ballot initiatives. Let's talk about that.
Yes, I'll be quick. The first one's in Louisiana, Amendment 1, which would establish there is no constitutional right to abortion. I feel optimistic this could pass. Louisiana tends to be very pro-life. But in Colorado, Proposition 115, this would be huge. It would ban late-term abortions at 22 weeks of pregnancy, which is when we know that babies can feel pain. This would be huge for Colorado because they're one of the 7 states that have no restrictions on abortion, Tracy.
All right, a lot going on, and we're going to talk to you later on tonight.
Yes.
So we'll get more perspective from you then.
Sounds good. We'll have updates then. Thanks, Tracy.
Okay, sounds so good. Thank you so much, Catherine. Appreciate you coming on. Before we go, let's take one last look at the Electoral College map. Here it is right here, an up-to-minute look right there. It goes. As you can see right now, we are taking a look at it. Joe Biden has 119 electoral votes to Donald Trump, 92 right there. We will continue following this along throughout the night for you right here. And don't forget, we have more live coverage tonight coming up at 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. Eastern. We will see you again at 11. From our nation's capital tonight, I am Tracy Sabol. We leave you once again with a live look at the White House. This as more votes continue to be counted. God bless you.
Pray the Holy Rosary with Mother Angelica. Next on EWTN.
The EWTN family mourns the passing of our dear friend and colleague Andrew Walther, President and Chief Operating Officer of EWTN News. Eternal rest grant